Good evening, everybody. Welcome into the Nittany Lion Sports Report. It's live here on BLS. Bob Long, Tyler Gehlhaus. And after a big win against Wisconsin at home for the Nittany Lions, it's 2 games before the end of the regular season. Rutgers, Maryland, 2 games that I think Penn State expects to win. News out that Maryland's starting quarterback. Another one will be unavailable due to injury, and so Penn State looks to move to 9-3 on the season. Of course, you need to play those 2 games first, Tyler. But what would be another 9-win season for Penn State, and with a bowl win, could be 10. So we thought that today was as good as any day to go through the roster in painstaking, it's going to be fun though, fashion, and take a look at where this roster is going to be next year as they move into 2019. Tyler, we talked a lot about this coming into the show. We'll jump right into it. We looked at every single position and discussed who's going to redshirt this year, who's going to graduate, who might go to the NFL draft, and just to give the listeners and viewers a real sense of where this roster is going, and it certainly might surprise some folks.
Yeah, I mean, we'll jump right into it, as you said, Bob, but, you know, on offense, as of right now, there is only one starter with no more eligibility left, that being quarterback, school record holder in many categories, Trace McSorley. And the defensive side of the ball is a little bit older, maybe three starters that are seniors, but a lot of the younger guys have been playing key roles at those positions anyway. So, you know, at the beginning of the year, we knew this was a younger team, and we're going to show you just how young it is and how good and how talented this team could be, and hopefully that the guys that are thinking about going to the NFL, they'd be huge parts next year on the team for Penn State. So we'll break it down for you right here. Yeah,
for the folks that are watching on Facebook and on Twitter, we will be able to show you visual cues for those listening on iTunes. Certainly, we're going to give you what you're looking for and tell you what you're seeing. But yeah, I think we can probably start, Tyler, with the quarterback position. Obviously, you mentioned Trace McSorley being the primary starter, as you see on your screen right now. That's essentially the depth chart. And as it stands right now, this is today's eligibility. Trace McSorley, a senior, Tommy Stevens, the junior. But then the 2 young guys, Will Levis, Sean Clifford, both freshmen. Mm-hmm. Will Levis is absolutely going to redshirt this year. Yep. And then the big thing that I think people are looking to the future on, although I do think Sean Clifford is going to throw his hat in the ring for this down the road, is the arrival of Taquan Roberson and Mike. Roberson commits first, and I don't think necessarily people expected Johnson Jr. to commit for some time. Then it kind of appeared that it was heading that way. He does commit, and we realized, wow, this could be quite an interesting battle between 2 quarterbacks that have a little bit of different playing styles.
Yeah, if I could just say something before we really get started here, for our viewers, this is strictly the scholarship players. There are other quarterbacks on the Penn State team, but this is strictly scholarship players. There are 82 current players on scholarship on Penn State, with the maximum being 85. So there are 82. And the other thing I'd like to point out there is that the recruits are verbal commitments right now until, I believe, December. It's sometime early December is when they can sign on the dotted line.
Or rapidly expanded last year.
Yeah, correct. Or they can wait until the traditional first Tuesday of February or something along those lines. But a lot of these guys plan on signing on in about a month now, less than a month, couple of weeks. So just for the viewers that and listeners, that this is all verbal commitments. Nothing set in stone yet, but it's looking good for Penn State with those guys.
That's right. And for the folks that are privy to watching us here on Facebook and on Twitter, you have it listed as verbal
there's
commitments.
Also going to be more guys joining the fold at various positions as well.
Indeed. So let's take a look at running back right now, because Mark Allen obviously injured out for the season. Miles Sanders, that's an interesting discussion as to his availability and his desirability amongst NFL GMs as we get towards the draft. Certainly gotten bigger, stronger, has been one of the most dynamic backs in the Big Ten. And in terms of folks that are eligible to leave for the draft, I would think that there would be absolutely teams interested in him.
I think he's probably one of the ones, probably one of the 3 that I'm keeping my eye on for the NFL draft. At the beginning of the year, we talked about, how many shoes Penn State had to fill at various positions across the board. And I predicted, I believe it was something crazy, like he would rush for more yards than Saquon. I'm not sure what Saquon Barkley finished with last year. Sanders just eclipsed 1,000. He's up to nine touchdowns on the ground. He's playing really good football. I think that he's had a very strong year, especially when they get him running north and south. I think that's when he's best. I mean, that sounds cliche for a running back, but Barkley was able to dance it out to the outside, like the USC run and some of his other big runs where he can bounce out to the outside. Sanders just isn't that style, but, I mean, he's been impressive. He had a couple of Saquon esque runs last week with the hurdles over the Wisconsin defenders, and he's going to continue to, I think, climb up draft boards. I'm not sure where he would come in the NFL conversation. I think that he's definitely a guy. I mean, this is really his first year showing out.
Yep.
I think that another year would do nothing but help his stock.
But let's say, Tyler, that he does not make the return.
So
here's where it really gets interesting, because
you would lose 3 running backs, hypothetically. You would lose Miles Sanders. You would lose Mark Allen, who has been out for the season. The the Kent State game. And you would also lose Jonathan Thomas, who has been more or less a reserve for his career, but a great team player. The interesting tidbit here is C.J. Holmes. He was at Notre Dame last season, was dismissed from the team, violation of team rules. He's from Connecticut. He's actually he walked on Penn State, and he's been there since the summer, I believe, maybe even the spring. But he is strictly a scout player this year. He could not play NCAA rules, transferring D1 to D1, so he's sitting out this year. He'll have 3 years left of eligibility. He's a very versatile player.
Glad you said that.
At Notre Dame, they played him a little bit on defense, wide receiver, and running back. I think that they probably have him. I'm not sure if they have him at running back because of the foreseeable depth, or if they feel that that's his best position.
When you say depth, you mean the position that he would be playing at wide receiver, which is slot, most likely.
Right. That, and I think that, in the case that Miles Sanders leaves for the NFL, I think that helps having C.J. Holmes playing running back for next year. And can you pull that screen back up, please?
Yeah. One comment I was going to make, sure, Tyler, is just how young this particular running back class is. I mean, there may not be that depth that you're talking about, but what you do have is top-heavy guys, and Ricky Slade, who is as talented as any running back coming out of that class, and Devin Ford, who, if I'm not mistaken, is the top running back in that class.
I don't want to say he is the top, but he is certainly up towards the top, and he's another running back out of Virginia, much same as Ricky Slade there. Mm-hmm. But Devin Ford comes in on 24/7 Sports at the number 4 running back in the country. So Penn State has recruited the position exceptionally well. I mean, believe it or not, Saquon Barkley was actually the least rated out of the last couple backs that come out.
Sure.
Include Miles Sanders, Ricky Slade. I mean, he was higher than Journey Brown, who was a 3-star, but he's got speed, and I'm interested to see what he can do. And I think that, there is a chance that Penn State still adds another running back into this 2019 class, whether it's Noah Cain from Louisiana, but he currently plays at IMG Academy in Florida. He was just up for his second official visit, and his parents were there, and that would be great to add another big-time running back. And there's another guy named Mark Anthony Richards from Florida that they're looking at. So I think they're really trying to get a second back in this class. With Sanders potentially moving on, and even without, it's still good to have as much depth as possible. So like you said, I mean, very young running back room, but extremely talented. Extremely talented.
What we've seen with some of these highly touted backs, again, small sample size, correlation, not necessarily causation, is guys that come in and you can see can make guys miss. Miles Sanders, Ricky Slade in limited action. Trouble with both of them holding on to the football at times. And that's something that just they need to continue to drill into these guys. And quite frankly, you're getting hit harder at the college level than you are at the high school level. It's something to get used to.
Yeah, but running back is one of those positions that you need to be able to run 3 or 4 guys out there just because of the hits. And different guys bring different things to the table. You might have a great receiving third down back. You might have a better blocking back, speed, home run threat, and somebody that can carry it 20 times a game. So.
Sure. But there are teams that have shown that if you get the high top-tier backs, that they can come in as freshmen and contribute.
Absolutely.
J.K. Dobbins at Ohio State came in and was an absolute terrorist freshman year.
Absolutely. So The more talent, the better. Unfortunately, for some of the listeners, no fullback. No fullback on this roster breakdown.
I don't think there will be as long as James Franklin is here. Or maybe we'll say, better put, the influence of Joe Moorhead.
Sure.
And thereby Ricky
I would
Ronnie.
agree with that.
So you want to go to wide receiver next?
We'll jump on the wide receiver. First glance, again, our key is in the top right. Likely to red shirt is in red, and in yellow is NFL draft potential. Anybody with a junior or senior, obviously the seniors aren't coming back, so it'd be juniors that are draft eligible, and we only highlighted the ones that actually would have a legitimate chance of leaving early for the pros. At the beginning of the year, I thought Juwan Johnson was a lock to do so.
Sure.
All the hype that I've read, he has not had the year that really anybody has thought he would have. Injured, drop passes, just really could never put it together this year. I'm not sure what the future holds for Juwan Johnson. I would love to see him back and improved. I don't think that he has much of a strong draft stock right now. I think that he comes back, and then there's other guys. If you first glance at the list, you're going to see that these younger guys are getting a lot of the touches right now. And I mean, Brandon Polk did not play last game at all against Wisconsin. He's been dropping a lot this year, and Jahan Dotson moves in. They put him out on the outside where Polk was, has another nice game for a freshman. He will not redshirt this year. And Justin Shorter, another true freshman, he's still on the border, so that's why we didn't highlight him. Likely to redshirt. He had his first catch. It was only for 3 yards. He's finally seen the field. It looks like Daniel George, another promising freshman, will redshirt. He's only played in, I believe, 2 games so far. Again, this is all likely. And then yeah, and obviously we all know about KJ Hamler, what he's done. And again, on the field, he's a freshman. He's a redshirt freshman, so academically he's a sophomore, but eligibility-wise he's a freshman. And they're bringing in 2 very solid receivers as well. So, I mean, the future of the wide receiver room, it's only going to improve. I truly believe that. I mean, I think
John Dunmore, we talk about a verbal commit. This kid has a chance to be
Florida,
special.
South Florida. Yeah, I mean, next year's wide receiver group should be like day and night compared to what we saw this year. No disrespect. DeAndre Tompkins had a solid career at Penn State. He showed flashes
this weekend.
Yep, I mean he showed flashes. I don't think that they'll really miss him that much. Nothing against DeAndre. And
frankly, probably more in the punt game and just the reliability back there. That is what you'll miss about DeAndre Tompkins. But even, again, with this roster and KJ Hamler becoming a year older, Dotson becoming a year older, Justin Shorter a year healthier, we'll call it, does Brandon Polk even play on this team next year?
That was actually what I was thinking about, is a lot of times Polk and Johnson are both redshirt juniors, meaning that they are academically seniors.
Graduate
a lot
transfer.
of times, well, there's that, and a lot of times, coaches have meetings at the end of the year with the players, and they pretty much say, hey, look, this is where you stand. And, a lot of times, you will see a couple guys that, names that that won't be back for whether it's academics, whether it's playing time, if there's somewhere better for them. And, I mean, I'm not saying that Brandon Polk or Juwan Johnson are one of those guys that aren't going to be asked, to come back essentially for the 5th year, but that's always something to keep an eye out too, especially when you have a talented younger group like you're seeing here on your screen.
Yeah, I think that it goes without saying that Juwan Johnson and Brandon Polk, you're talking about 2 different types of receivers, 2 different situations. Johnson will play on this team.
And Johnson's potential is there.
Can be a star.
I mean, he could be an NFL. He could literally be an NFL star if he puts it all together. I mean, he has the body. He has the frame. He has everything to do that. It's just putting it together.
Brandon Polk was that guy that we thought could be a nice slot receiver, add-on guy, 3rd to 4th receiver for this team. And now what Penn State has recruited is the KJ Hamlers of the world, the Dotsons, who I think can be a very good slot receiver, is kind of being phased to the outside because of the guys that are around him. And even a smaller Mac Hippenhammer, who we haven't seen quite enough of yet, but I think a guy who can be successful. And there's a guy that is sitting right in the middle of our board we haven't even mentioned yet. Cam Sullivan-Brown does a lot of good things, doesn't really get noticed all that much, but he's a solid receiver.
He's a bigger receiver, not huge, maybe 6'1", 6'2", but, I mean, you made a great point. I mean, think about, last year's team had Gesicki at 6'6", Johnson on the outside at 6'4", Hamilton was probably about 6 foot, 6'1" maybe. They had some bigger guys out there. Even when Irvin Charles was still on the team, he was 6'4", 6'5". I mean, the wide receiver room, they're kind of bringing in a lot of smaller guys. I mean, they still have Shorter. I mean, if you can put Shorter and Johnson on the outside next year, have Hamler in the middle, sprinkle in Dotson, sprinkle in Hippenhammer. I mean, Sullivan Brown on the outside, sprinkle him in. You got a really strong wide receiver room, which with matchup nightmares across the board, and especially with the way Freiermuth has been playing at tight end. I mean, it could be a scary wide receiver room, like night and day compared to this year.
So I think the point we're getting to as well here, we'll throw it up one more time for the viewers here and speak it for the listeners on iTunes. We appreciate everybody being with us through all our mediums here tonight. Quarterback, most likely going to be led by Stevens, but again, there's 4 guys that are underclassmen.
Hey, and Stevens
Clifford, Levis, Roberson, Johnson, guys that are right behind and will challenge for that spot.
Stevenson has had injury problems in the past.
Yeah.
So Sean Clifford will be ready. Will Levis will be ready. And I believe, I'm not certain, but I think those 2 quarterbacks may be enrolling early. I'm not quite sure on that, but
yeah. So then we just to run through quickly here, the running backs. Again, you're led by freshmen next year. Ricky Slade, who will now be obviously a sophomore, but underclassmen, guys that were freshmen this year will start contributing. Devin Ford, what will his role be? Journey Brown. This might be the one position, and you mentioned at the top, that might be a little bit thin at this point, but not short on talent. But again, youth movement. Wide receivers. Sullivan Brown, a freshman. Hamler, a freshman. Dotson, a freshman. Shorter, a freshman, might retain that status. George should retain that freshman status. And Mac Hippenhammer will be a sophomore. John Dunmore, a guy that I think can come in and contribute right away. And then Emery Simmons, the second verbal commit. The idea here, Tyler, as we run through this, is youth. A team that doesn't graduate that many even this year, as you said, is seemingly going to get younger. And that is scary good. Also a thing where they're going to have to figure out what their identity is for a little while next year.
Yeah, you're also going to be seeing a lot of James Franklin's most recent and most successful recruiting classes start to take the field, which is promising.
So let's move to tight end. Speaking of promising recruiting classes and promising guys that are on the field now as freshmen, my goodness, Pat Freiermuth, a guy who it's tough to gauge what this really means, but could be a first-team All-America tight end.
Down the road, I don't see why he can't be. I mean,
I'm saying freshman All-American.
Freshman All-American, absolutely. But I mean,
I'm not calling the shot down the road.
I could definitely see it. I mean, he's got all the intangibles. I think he's 6'5", about 255. He can block. He can run. He's athletic. He came in August for camp. I mean, he was buried on the on the depth chart at first with Bowers was injured, but it was really Holland and Dalton on the depth chart at the top. And
frankly, people were talking about Zach Kuntz a little bit more as well.
And Zach Kuntz is going to be a great talent as well. He's redshirt, likely to redshirt. I'm almost certain he will. He's a lanky. He's lanky. He's got to fill out a little bit. He's about 6'7", 6'8". Brother played at Penn State a couple years ago by the name of Christian Kuntz. From the Harrisburg area. So I think that they could team up to be a nasty tandem in the future, and they're just 2 different styles. Kuntz is more of the pure receiving tight end, where Freiermuth is overall, and Kuntz just has to fill out a little bit. Dalton, we really haven't seen much of him at all, and John Holland has really taken a back seat to Freiermuth, and Bowers has gotten the second amount of tight end play, specifically for blocking. He's in on a lot of blocking packages. You throw it to him once in a while, but he's a pure blocking tight end. But and they bring one tight end in, and Brenton Strange as of right now. I think that'll be it for tight ends. Everyone eligible to return. I'm not sure if everyone does, but the future of that position looks incredibly bright as well.
Yes, it does. Very interesting about Freiermuth. My takeaway there, not even Mike Gesicki, and I believe it was because of the age difference and knowing that Mike Gesicki was going to graduate, but not even Mike Gesicki could get people to shut up about Nick Bowers. I mean that respectfully to Nick Bowers and the fans that really wanted to see him out on the field. But there was constant discussion about when's Nick Bowers going to be on the field. When he gets on the field, he's going to be dynamic. And now a true freshman comes in and completely changes the narrative. And like you said, Bowers now in more blocking formations, but Freiermuth is the guy that is the go-to target in many ways of the entire offense. He and KJ Hamler this year have kind of traded off.
Yeah, I mean, two freshmen, Pat Fryermuth being the true and Hamler being the red shirt. But it's, it's a good problem to have. I mean, they're going to be talented for many years at the skilled position, as we've seen so far.
So let's take a look at the offensive line here. This one is a little bit more involved of a slide. Obviously, you need more depth at this position. But what we have is Ryan Bates, Steven Gonzalez, Connor McGovern. 3 guys at the junior class that could elect to go to the NFL next year. Again, if we're picking the guys that I think could, I don't know that any of them do, but Bates might be the one.
I think Bates would be the best bet. He's played a ton of football for Penn State. He's a 3-year starter now. He started at left guard. They bumped him out to tackle. He got injured last year in the Ohio State game. That really killed Penn State in that game, by the way. I think he's better suited at the next level at an interior position because of his size. 6'4", I mean, great size, 6'4", 305, but I mean, he's just better suited size-wise at guard. But, I think that Gonzalez and McGovern definitely could benefit. I think they could all benefit from another year. But, it's ultimately up to them. And I think that, if all 3 of those guys do decide to come back, it's going to be it should be a much improved offensive line, but I also thought that it should have been much improved this year. And there's been times where I don't think there's been any improvement. So, these guys are getting close to the end of the road here, a lot of them, and they've been playing a lot of that since their redshirt freshman or true freshman seasons. And I think they could all benefit from another year.
Yeah, I was going to say, except that they're not coming to the end of their road. I mean, it seems like this line has been together, most things considered, for a long time.
Well, next year would be the end of the road.
Next year would be the
majority. If Bates, Gonzalez, McGovern come back, they would be senior eligibility next year.
Right. Point being, though, is, Will Fries was playing as a freshman. Michael Mennett stepped in this year and has played.
By the way, those two are both NFL draft potential because they're redshirt sophomores, but there's no chance either of them go.
Right.
So that's why they're not highlighted.
But, in terms of graduating,
it's only Chaz Wright and Charlie Schumann down at the bottom. That is it. Charlie Schumann does not get much playing time.
Right.
But that's, Chaz Wright gets sparingly playing time with Will Fries. But, and they have guys on this board that a promising recruiting class that is all being redshirted right now. Juice Scruggs looks to be a center down the road. Rasheed Walker looks to be left or right tackle. I've heard great things about him. And Bryce Effner's a little bit of a project right now. They're probably going to be playing him at guard. He was the least highest rated recruit, but they like what they see from him. So it's a very good true freshman group that they have. And then there's other redshirt freshmen right now, including Miranda, who has seen time at guard. CJ Thorpe, you probably have seen him on defense or even running back kickoffs. He's one of the up men.
I think we've all seen him on defense.
So I think eventually they're going to push. I think he's better at guard. He's on the guard. I think on the website that he's listed as guard/D tackle. So I think hopefully they can push him back to guard next year and really get him going there because he is nasty in the run game blocking. And then there's still other guys on the list. Des Holmes they really like as a redshirt freshman lineman, and they're bringing in a couple of 3 very highly rated offensive linemen, all with the last name starting with H. That might be a first for Penn State offensive lineman in a recruiting class. But
what is that?
All their last names start with an H. W. I'm sorry.
I was going to say
I'm far away over here. But I think Anthony Wiggin would be the one to look out for to just
play right
away
no
because
doubt.
He's a JUCO. He's had 2 years at Lackawanna Community College up in Scranton.
Which we're also going to hear about another guy coming from Lackawanna on the defensive side of the ball.
Right. So I think that hopefully the whole line comes back and they'll be in great shape and really the depth is there. It's just a matter of these guys really translating onto the field.
So, natural kind of stopping point here as we get to the end of the offensive line. Again, though, as you look at this, they can return the entire offensive line if they choose, but the backlog of talent, Rasheed Walker is the guy that I'll point to, most impressively. Now, the position he would have to replace if Bates and Fries came back at one of the tackle positions, I think would be the two toughest guys to displace. But that probably McGovern as well.
Let's play the game here. If Bates is the only one that leaves, because I believe that I think that he has the greatest chance and potential. Truthfully, if he were to leave, that leaves left tackle open, assuming they slide Fries over to left, which they did for Wisconsin.
Yes.
And which they did for Wisconsin, and that might not stay like that.
They did it at times even last year.
Yeah. So assuming that, who would you go to Rasheed Walker as your first man up as a redshirt freshman?
Let me say this. I don't feel like either of us has all the information to make that decision, but that said, based on ability alone coming in, I believe that would be the answer. That said, these guys, once they come on campus, we know everything that there is to know about these guys before they come on campus. There's all this film out there. They get to campus and they hunker down in a bunker, and you don't hear about them all that much for a year. So we really don't know what any of these guys are going to bring right now. But what we do know is that there's a really good strength and conditioning program that's going to build up Rasheed Walker from his frame, which allows him to put on more muscle, more weight, and allow him to
footwork.
Yeah, well, that's of course. Becoming ready to play the position.
He has
at the college
frame
level.
for an offensive tackle.
It's true.
He has the frame, and I think the interesting part here would be if they lose Bates, the NFL is Anthony Wiggin. I think is a wild card. Last time we had a junior college offensive lineman come in, it happened to be Paris Palmer. As many people remember, if I'm not mistaken, I think he did come from Lackawanna as well. Not positive, but he was thrown into the fire with the sanctions, and he wasn't as advertised, I guess you could say, as people may have thought that he would be as a highly recruited JUCO, but he still had a solid career at Penn State. He improved. He really did improve, and started many games for Penn State. But sometimes you just don't know what you're getting with junior college, with junior college linemen. But it's always good because they're a little further developed with their size and game speed to the college level. So I think that's the wild card there is Wiggin.
Yeah, I think so. Nittany Lion Sports Report here on BLS. Bob Long, Tyler Gehlhaus. We'll take a little bit of a step back. For those people that are watching on iTunes, we are now going to cut this and move to release a new episode in a day or so. We're going to go through the defense. But those of you watching live, we'll continue right along here. Appreciate everybody being with us.